All right, very good morning. We are back to it. It's 6:48 in the morning. This is 3 days since the last video because, work and my schedule just being a bit full, and I can't really do this during the day because kids, kids would just, yeah. I might, I might do a video. Well, try and do a video during the days. Um, but you know, my kids like my entertainment, so it's not really fair. I don't know if I'm just sitting here watching a video while they want me to play, so I try to get this done early in the morning while they're still asleep. But anyway, let's get to it. This is where we last left off, and let's see what more interesting information we can pick up. I don't know how loud this is going to be, so
different religions in the old world. Nor were they intended to be. They signaled something else entirely. They are usually made from copper and gold. Both are excellent conductors of electricity.
this is very true. Very true.
In many of the structures we call cathedrals, the symmetrical spikes on the pinnacles worked in a similar fashion, extracting ether from the ionosphere. Once harvested, the energy would inevitably have been drawn down into the top larger portion of these domed structures. When examining many of the interiors of these domes, we come to realize that they rely heavily on symmetrical ornamentation. This is achieved by indentation or cavities in the masonry.
It's
In
extraordinary.
the world of electromagnetism,
Yeah.
a cavity resonator works through symmetry to produce oscillation or vibration of energetic particles. Symmetrical shapes force energetic particles or ions to vibrate in a constant manner. Is this why we see perfect symmetrical ornamentation within the ceiling of many domed structures? It no doubt sounds absurd, but the majority of these structures also feature a smaller type of cavity resonator, or what is more appropriately termed cavity magnetrons, that offer some clarity as to the real function of these structures. A cavity magnetron is a high-powered vacuum tube that generates microwaves using the interaction of a stream of ions with a magnetic field while in the cavity resonator.
I think I see where this is going.
A magnetron operates through a hollowed, symmetrical vacuum. It emits powerful microwaves that can act as a source of free energy. If you break the symmetry or close the vacuum, it no longer functions. But
hold
can
on.
you
So something that's just stood out. Again, sorry I've paused it this early on. But I think something that's like really stood out here. That's when I look at this, I am reminded that if you go to like uh, these buildings like churches and cathedrals, the windows all look like that. Like, if you really think about it, like that's the only thing that is like that tripwire in my brain is like, hold on a minute, these look like church windows, which I think is interesting, but we'll see. I could be wrong
see the
here.
resemblance?
Ah!
These structures were never intended to hold glass within them.
There you go.
The controllers added the stained glass to the rose windows to shut off the magnetron's function. They closed out instruments of free energy.
Now that is interesting.
And they are everywhere
Yes.
in these structures.
That is interesting. That is interesting that they literally added the glass to stop it from happening. I mean, it makes sense. It literally makes sense. Like, if you really think about it, if you really think about it, that makes perfect sense. It does. Anyway, let's carry on. This is too interesting to stop. Look at that. Isn't that incredible?
Interestingly, if you look at the geometry of entire sections of the structures themselves, then it becomes very evident that they functioned in their entirety like a cavity magnetron to generate energy. All cavity magnetrons consist of a central heated circular metal chamber in which the current leaves, and it's called a cathode. Look at that word. Cathode. Does it remind you of another word? Cathedral. Cathode. Like with everything else, they corrupt the truth and hide things in plain sight.
Yeah.
The controllers removed most of the cathodes integral to these cavity magnetrons. But there are some structures today in which you can see traces of the old cathodes still present.
That's incredible.
The heavy reliance on symmetry and cavities within these structures is not coincidental. The symmetrical ornamentation would have worked in a similar manner, causing the energetic particles to vibrate in a constant manner. The flowers within the squares can be understood as similar to acoustic resonators, working to vibrate the ions. It is here that the energy would have been continually manipulated into vibrational and electromagnetic energy of specific frequencies. Really look at these magnificent acoustic resonators. Could you craft one of these by hand today, and at such height? Why would an underdeveloped people spend so much of their time crafting such perfect symmetrical ornamentation, especially if it had no function and was purely aesthetic? They wouldn't. The cavity resonators and magnetrons would have had to have worked in partnership with a central engine or reactor contained within all these structures. Both resonator and reactor are interesting words. Just like the words conductor, generator, creator, and the name Mercator, they all contain the word Tor within their linguistic structure. They hold a linguistic memory and pay homage to the torus or toroidal field. The torus is the flow of electromagnetism. Without this flow of energy, there would be no life on Earth. No one can really know for sure, but some have suggested that the engine was probably similar to a fusion reactor. The traces of these engines can be found within all of the larger generators. The empty shell of where the engine used to reside is usually, but not always, octagonal. It's been right in front of our faces the whole time. The controllers remove the engines, sometimes repurposing the space as baptistries and bandstands, sometimes just leaving the base either barren or attempting to cover them up. We see these octagonal structures in cathedrals, government buildings, mosques, and attached bandstands. And unless they have been repurposed, these structures seem to hold no overall function. They do not contribute to the overall structure. They appear superfluous and unnecessary. Theories have surfaced that the engines or central technological mechanism was similar to a tokamak. And while I do not subscribe to this idea, which will become evident as to why later in our journey, for now we will use it for illustrative purposes.
Okay.
A tokamak is a powerful device that uses a magnetic field to produce plasma in the form of a torus. The contemporary tokamaks we see are used in thermonuclear fusion power. The tokamak's toroidal field, in conjunction with the vibrating ions from the ether, would have produced a highly conductive electromagnetic field of gases called plasma, just like our sun and ionosphere. If those of the old world used anything closely resembling a tokamak's capability, then the result would have been an abundance of free, powerful, clean electromagnetic energy.
This is so crazy, because I've said this for ages, that the system that we're in, the energy. I'm trying to organize this in my head the best way I can as I struggle to lift a cup of tea this morning. So I have no doubt that they have access to free energy. I have no doubt about that. Like he says, the controllers of this world have access to all this stuff. So they have access to free energy, but they just sell it to us. You know, your mind has to expand quite a lot. You know, the whole point of income tax, council tax, bedroom tax, view tax, VAT. There's tax on everything. There's literally tax on everything. We have to pay for energy that they get for free. Make no mistake about it, they get it for free. It's literally just to keep us enslaved. It's slavery never went anywhere. It just evolved. And I'm getting off on a tangent here, but that'll be another video and all that kind of stuff. So, but they have access to all this. I no doubt. I've said it for years.
That could fuel entire cities and the entire earth. These were never churches, cathedrals, castles, and parliament buildings. They were all huge engine generators.
Look at that.
The controllers invented labels and terms such as Renaissance, Greco-Roman, and so on to describe the style of these structures. But as you can see, all these magnificent, impossible structures all share the same fundamental structural principles and design, despite location, time period, and cultures. And this is because they were created with the sole purpose of generating energy. And just because these structures were never used for prayer and worship does not mean they were not holy sites. The civilizations of the past had a relationship with the Source and the Holy Spirit, or the ether, like no other. And they paid homage, reverence, and thanks to it by constructing their generators with such splendor and beauty. And not only that, but they constructed the entirety of their structures, statues, and ornamentation in reverence of this gift, in reverence of the energy production that made their way of life possible in the first place. The laurel wreath, which the satanic controllers have corrupted in their appropriation of the symbol and redesignation of it to...
Yeah, so that isn't that image interesting? Isn't that image absolutely fantastic? That I think is that the I think it was that's the UN logo, is the flat Earth map with all the quadrants in it. So if so, my question is, if a flat Earth is false and the flat Earth is just an absolute joke, why do they use that for their emblem, their symbol? I don't know. Just something to think about, I suppose. We've got quite a long way to go.
Represent Apollo and Lucifer is, in fact, a toroidal coil. And we see the toroidal coil throughout the old world's infrastructure, as simultaneously having both a function and a celebration of this function. Electromagnetic coils are electrical conductors. They are used in applications where electric current interacts with a magnetic field. In devices such as generators, motors, inductors, and transformers. Most coils take the form of a toroidal coil or spiral. Wire coils are used in conjunction with a magnet to produce powerful electromagnetism. The more turns of the wire, the stronger the magnetic field. Coils generate vortexes, which in turn create an electromagnetic field. It's all one interconnected system.
See, they knew it. Free energy, they knew it. They absolutely knew it. Yep, there it is. Free energy.
And we see it everywhere. This is what columns and rotundas were used for. Powerful coils to generate electromagnetism and carry the current in loops. The torus is found at the base of pretty much every column found throughout our realm. It is everywhere. Look at the movement of electricity through a wire and the simultaneous magnetic field it produces. This is exactly the shape of a column. And we see this present in all of these gigantic and meticulously crafted columns. This is why we see the magnetic field represented at the top of a lot of columns. It's the movement of the ions in the magnetic field. It's the movement of the toroid and the toroidal vortex.
Damn. Like, oh, this stuff's literally across the road from me. Right across the road.
As you saw, coils of copper wire are essential in electrifying the magnet. And I know what you want to say. That's great, but the columns and other structures you are referring to are made of stone.
Maybe something.
But you see, all of these impossible structures are made from a mixture of stone and metal. They used iron bars in their construction.
Yep, there we go.
Iron is magnetic.
There we go. Oh yeah, look. It's inside it. Man, they need some inboard stabilization on this footage. Good God. That's why I shoot with 4K on my camera. Not this one, yeah, this is just a 1080 Logitech, but I'm on about my Lumix is a...
These iron rods run throughout the stone infrastructure and are complemented with copper and gold roofing. Copper and gold are strong conductors of electricity. Often we find entire statues, arches, domes, and roofing made from a distinctive blue copper. Furthermore, the limestone, granite, and dolomite stone is mixed with crystal silicon or quartz. Quartz has strong electric potential.
See, the thing, this is crazy that I am. So when I'm not doing the videos, I'm constantly looking at I'm constantly looking at stuff. And one of the things I found was damn, I can't remember the name of it now, but basically cloud busting. And I found cloud busting very interesting. And excuse me, I will be attempting to make my own cloud buster, but oh my God, there's teeth repeating on me. But a much more refined cloud buster, much more, I want to say, powerful cloud buster, not just the ones where they just, I've been really looking into it, and I really want to make it like supercharged, because I'm really interested in this stuff. I really am interested, and I just want to see if it works. I want to, put it to the test, because you see people using cloud busters, and they use quartz and copper and all sorts of things, and they put it to the sky, and you can sort of see stuff happening with the clouds. I want to test that. I want to test it to see if it's real. Okay, I'm not going to just watch someone do it, because there's could be editing happening in the video when they say there isn't. But I mean, we all know, there's people out there that do that kind of stuff. But yeah, so this is something that we're gonna try and do. But anyway, yeah, let's carry on watching this. This is good.
Colonnades and arches we see everywhere were at once integral components to the overall electromagnetic infrastructure.
That's crazy.
While also constructed in geometric forms that mirror the flow of electromagnetic energy, such as coil loops, horseshoe magnetic fields, and toroidal vortexes. As with everything else constructed in the old world, they were both functional and crafted as a homage to that function.
Wow, look at that.
A lot of ethereal energy was stored in structures constructed from red bricks and concrete. Red bricks and concrete are excellent conductors of electricity. They operated as huge capacitors or batteries. According to new research, red bricks can be converted into energy storage units that can be charged to hold electricity, like a battery, and can store energy until required for powering devices. The key to this battery-like function inherent within red brick is the iron oxide. The development and use of red brick is so important, and we will be returning to this subject much later in our journey. The really big red brick power stations and batteries were designated and recognizable by their white stripes, such as St Pancras Railway Station in London, and many other famous structures. We still carry this red and white stripe designation of power stations today.
Yeah, we do.
And it is also an indicator for the magnet. Some were constructed of blue, black, and brown with white stripes. Towers, obelisks, and small clock towers functioned as the intermediate capacitors or batteries to store, distribute, and provide energy throughout the grid. The entire flat realm Earth was connected as one whole grid, a complex interconnected system of free energy production, distribution, and consumption. And this entire grid was destabilized and deactivated somewhere between the 17th and 19th century. Power grids like this do not function on a spherical mass. Our historical ancestors knew that the earth they walked upon was flat. This type of futuristic technological advancement is the result of a civilization knowing exactly what type of earth they lived upon. They were not subject to the same satanic deceptions and abuses as we are. They were not raised believing they existed on a lonely, globular rock spinning in the vacuum of space. The true, ethereal, electromagnetic properties of the Earth were not hidden from them. They knew there was a domed firmament above their heads. They studied it. They imitated its properties and understood its central relationship with the entire ethereal existence of electromagnetism. They revered the magnificence of its craft and showed utmost gratitude to the Source, to God, and the ethereal Holy Spirit for giving them everything they needed. Look.
That's remarkable.
Domes.
It's remarkable. That's incredible, isn't it? I mean, you have to admit that. I mean, Luke, that is remarkable. I think everyone should get out there and start videoing these things. And yeah, this is incredible. Yeah, but people built this in what, 1700s, 1800s, sure, or before that. You know, we're told, you know, with simple tools. Yeah, okay. Detail in it. I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm enjoying this. I mean, we're not even halfway through yet, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I wish I could do it all in one day. I really do wish I could do it all in one day. Wow.
Have you seen anything as overwhelmingly exquisite as this before? How have we lived our entire lives and not seriously considered the impossibility of these structures? How
So
have we
true.
lived our entire lives walking amongst the skeletons of the future long forgotten? I know this is all a lot to take in,
Hell yeah, it is.
and I know that the picture has not formed properly in your mind yet. It is hard to imagine an interconnected electromagnetic power grid of this size across the Earth. And the technical nature of electromagnetism doesn't help. And I know that you're full of questions. Who were these people or beings that built these structures? Where did they go? And why were the power grids deactivated? What about all the religious iconography and art we see inside of the cathedrals and mosques? What about all the histories and photographs we have of the construction of these structures? What about the Romans and the Greeks? What about some of the grand mosques that have been constructed in recent times? And if what you're telling me is true, then how did they distribute and store all of this energy like you say? Was it similar to our Wi-Fi and radio signals? We will get to all of these in good time. We have barely scratched the surface.
Oh,
But for
God.
now, it is the last question that is important. How did they distribute and store all of this energy?
We've only just
And in
scratched the
what
surface.
form?
Jesus Christ.
For you see, our sophisticated historical ancestors did something that we, as a society, have come to neglect. They watched the water, and they watched it closely, right here on Earth and up above, beyond the firmament. Come on, let me show you.
Here we go. Here we go again. Whew, this
Tip
keeps getting
tap
deeper.
goes the rain,
Keeps getting
spitting
deeper.
on my window pane. Drip drip from the trees, sodden earthy and soggy leaves. Splosh, splash, puddle pools, jumping on their way to schools. Onomatopoeia. The formation or use of words that imitate the sounds associated with the object or actions they refer to. The property of a word of sounding like what it represents. Water has many. The interdependent relationship between water and sound is so fundamental to our connection and understanding of water. The rain patters and drums, the waves roar, the brook murmurs and whispers, the puddles of mud squelch, that it is intrinsically woven into the very linguistic code of our language. Many have explored the powerful connection between sound and water. We have Masaru Emoto and his study exploring the impact of sound on the molecular structure of water. We have those that like to play around with cymatics. There is Peter Davey, a saxophone player who invented a device that boils water with sonic waves. The innovative use of sound coupled with water seems to have no end. So much so that in recent times, biologists are discovering that ultrasonic water can even treat the most resistant of infections and heal wounds at rapid pace. And in a future where electromagnetism was harnessed with the utmost innovation, water, sound and frequency had to have a major role to play. And of course it did. They wanted us to know that it did. And not just the water here on Earth. They were telling us to look up and above. They wanted us to know that what they had achieved right here on Earth was only possible because they had studied what existed above. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. And let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Some criticize the King James translation of the Bible for its use of the word firmament. But in the original Hebrew, the word is rakia, which translates directly as firmament. In the New International Version, it is called the vault. In the English Standard Version, it is an expanse. In the Good News Translation, it is dome. What is important, however, is that in all translations, and in the original Hebrew, the notion of the firmament or vault separating the waters above from the waters below does not change and remains consistent. There is water above our realm. The telescope is an interesting instrument, both at once an apparatus for discovery and simultaneously a weapon of deceit. There are two primary types of telescope, the refractor and the reflector. A refractor uses an objective lens, usually a convex lens, and a reflector utilizes a single or a combination of curved mirrors to reflect light and form an image. Many reflector telescopes use either a concave mirror or a parabolic mirror. Okay. This is what a reflection looks like in these mirrors. The eyes we were born with, and which we see the world through, are convex lenses. We do not witness the world through curved mirror reflections. This is Jupiter as seen through a reflected Newtonian telescope. And despite the slight spherical distortion caused by the reflected mirrors, this is still not what NASA has shown us. Your mind immediately sees a planet because you have been programmed since birth to associate an image like this with the notion of a planet. Just in the same way you associate the moon with a ball of rock by default. But as you can see here, both refracting and reflecting telescopes produce images similar to the Nikon P900. The Nikon lenses have been criticized by some astronomers as lacking the power to really see the luminaries above. But as you can see here, there is not much difference between the Nikon and both types of telescope. And in each we see that Jupiter is radiating some kind of light of its own. Both amateur and professional astronomers present footage such as this. But look what happens next. The astronomers here are using imaging processing software to turn their raw images and footage, which display a circular object in the sky above us radiating its own light, into a NASA-style planet. And this type of doctored, processed image is not what we see with our own eyes through these lenses. I am not saying that this is deliberate deception. Astronomy is a practice of its own, but it is very important to never confuse the highly edited images and footage we receive with reality. And it is also worth being mindful of those that are being very manipulative. They are usually the astronomers with the paid sponsorship from magazines and websites. It is also important to note that what we call planets are not actually planets. They are wandering stars, and all of the wandering stars are of a similar nature to the moon. Unlike the rest of the stars above our firmament, their course and journey above us is not fixed and consistent. Their paths deviate from the concentric paths that the rest of the stars consistently make around Polaris. And the reason for this is because they are not located within the waters beyond the firmament. They are very different, and their function is way more occult, and their significance to life here on Earth much more important than we realize. We will be returning to the true nature of the so-called planets and moon later. Back to the waters. Arcturus is one of the brightest stars in the sky. Here is Science magazine's artistic impression of the star. And now here is Arcturus as seen through a refracting telescope. There is no resemblance. What we see through this telescope footage is really similar to what we see when you zoom in on the stars above with a powerful Nikon camera. Many criticize the refracting telescope because it can produce chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration is a failure of the lens to focus all color to the same point. The result can be purple fringing, and we see that here. Photographs can suffer from chromatic aberration. Interestingly, the Nikon does not produce the same chromatic aberration when zooming in on Arcturus. Therefore, you could say that the Nikon is actually more reliable and stable. Through both the telescopic lens and the Nikon, Arcturus is pulsing, shifting, rippling. It is dancing geometry. Many will jump up from their seats and exclaim, it's because of atmospheric distortion and light pollution. It's because Arcturus is so far away. But if it is atmospheric distortion, then why do all the stars display their own unique geometry and light patterns? They should all distort in a unified, consistent manner. It is not atmospheric distortion.
That's crazy.
The stars are pockets of sonoluminescence in the water above. They are self-illuminating, radiating their own light and frequencies in the waters above. Our own convex lensed eyes tell us that there is some kind of water above. We see it in the stars and when rockets accidentally hit the firmament. And, like I said before, just because the so-called planets or wandering stars and the moon appear spherical does not mean they are. They are not synonymous with the stars in the water beyond. They are something else entirely. Our advanced predecessors wanted us to watch the stars. They wanted us to understand that electromagnetic vibration and frequency produce pockets of sonoluminescence in the waters above. They were pointing it out because they wanted us to know that water was the key to unlocking the real potential of electromagnetic energy. They wanted us to know that once harnessed, the ethereal electromagnetic energy could be fused with water, so it could be stored and distributed. And once produced, the water could be manipulated, enhanced, and elevated to a level of new possibilities through the use of vibration, frequency, and sound itself. Their civilization depended
It's
on the
amazing.
industry of what we will call the living waters. Their technological advancement enabled them to transform the entire Earth into a power grid. But this grid was only possible because of water. The civilization of the future was an electromagnetic water world. Canals are no great secret. They are found everywhere across our realm,
They
both
are.
the great and the small. Most of the great canals around our Earth are connected to the ocean. Salt water is an excellent conductor of electricity. Sodium chloride is ionized. We have the Corinth Canal, connected to the Aegean Sea. We have the Panama Canal that connects both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The Suez Canal connects with the Mediterranean Sea. And there is the Volga-Don Canal, connecting the Azov Sea, Caspian Sea, and Black Sea with the major oceanic networks. All of the canals built before the 1920s were not built by us or those in the history books. We inherited them. And while the official narrative tells us that the Volga-Don was finished during the 1950s, its construction actually began back in the 16th century. All narrative surrounding the construction of these canals is purely fabricated, and I will show you how much later in our journey.
Now, it'd be interesting to see that.
Once you start paying attention, it becomes very evident that most continents and countries feature a combination of canals and rivers that span the entirety of the land itself. The citizens of the old world utilize the oceans and rivers to create a grid of interconnected waterways to provide water to all of their areas of habitation. In order to pass difficult sections and keep the supply going, they would build aqueducts and viaducts. Sometimes these were constructed with the purpose of energizing
sense, doesn't
the
it?
water as it passed through and into
to me it
different
does.
areas. And that is why many were designed with symmetrical archivolt structures. The Romans did not build these structures. The entire infrastructure of so many cities found across our realm are designed around canal systems. Look at Amsterdam from above. The precise geometric grid lines here are not roads, they are canals. And the sole purpose was to supply water from one area to another. The water was stored and manipulated for a variety of purposes in reservoirs, water towers, pumping stations, cisterns, and other structures. The water also functioned to provide necessary balance. A complex grid of electromagnetic production, distribution, and consumption would generate a lot of heat and magnetism. Water provided not only a balance of diamagnetism, but also ensured the entire grid did not overheat. When looking at all the magnificent generators and other instruments of power from the old world, we can always find water nearby, or the remains of water storage. Sometimes this is hidden primarily underground. Many do not realize that many so-called Victorian cisterns and reservoirs run very far under a lot of our cities.
That's true because there are some I would say cathedrals and and churches that I've been to, and then you can actually go down, and this is exactly what it's like, and it's nothing but like when it holds water. That's all it does is hold water, and it's exactly like this. So it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, this is this is yeah, this is mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. The thing is though, it makes sense, and I think he said it in oh, excuse me, he said it previously, um, somewhere in the video where the programming will kick in, and they've done a pretty good job of it because the program will kick in, and you will start to defend the system that they've made for you, and the program will start because it's like no, 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 no. We've been told this by how he puts it, the controllers, because they don't want us to know about this stuff, for a good reason. But yeah, I mean, I've been to places, and I didn't really understand it. Really, I was thinking, well, why would it be filled full of water underneath here? But it makes sense now.
And other times it is a central characteristic feature of these structures. An example of which is what the controllers have redesignated as castle moats. The electromagnetic water grid was not just an energized version of what we are already familiar with in our cities and towns. It was much, much, much more. It was way more magnificent, impressive, and futuristic than we could even imagine. The grid was connected to central, bigger power stations, or what is more appropriately termed star stations. Sometimes these were isolated stations, and other times they comprised entire cities. We are going to have to fly to a higher altitude for this. I need to show you. Hold on tight now and keep your eyes open.
Let's go.
Look.
That's remarkable. I mean, you can't honestly say that. I mean, just look at that. I mean, it. Man, it's crazy to think that we are literally told lie after lie after lie, and then we believe what the governments tell us. The governments. It should be obvious by now that the governments are just there to distract us and to keep us occupied with shit. The system that we're in, it's not a joke. It's literally made to keep us in constant suffering and struggle, because as long as we're in constant suffering and struggle, we don't have the ability to think. We don't have the time to think. So this stuff stays hidden, and it's in plain sight, and they give us their story on what it is, and we believe it, and we don't have the time or the energy to question it, because we're so preoccupied with just surviving, and it's made that way. It's made that way. Oh man, incredible. That's amazing. Something's going on upstairs. I'll be back in a moment.